Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to another episode of the Remarkable Coach podcast. As always, I'm your host, Micheal Pacheco, and today with me I have Lynne Jacob. Lynne helps men in business, from business suits to construction boots, go from feeling fed up with struggling, sacrificing, and settling for less to having the best teams they've ever had, making the most solid and reliable profits they've ever had, and getting the fun back, meaning that they fall back in love with why they went into business for themselves in the first place. Lynne Jacob, welcome to the Remarkable Coach.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate being here. Really appreciate the invitation.
I appreciate you making the time for it. If you would, I always like to open up this podcast by simply inviting our guests to tell us a little bit more about yourself in your own words and why you got into coaching.
Okay. Well, about myself. I guess I'm a bit of a free spirit or a vagabond or a nomad or something like that because I like to travel a lot. And it happened to be when I was living in Belgium for a short period that I learned of coaching, and I had learned of it at an event that I went to. And so then I just, researched it when I got home for several hours into the late night hours. And then the next day continued researching, and I just sent out some emails, I guess, to a couple of coaching academies. And so that was on a Sunday. And by Wednesday, I remember getting a phone call on my cell phone while I was driving. And this is way back in 2002, I think, or 2003, something like that. Mm-hmm. And anyway, pull over the side of the road, take the call, give my credit card number, and off I go. So that was the coaching part of it. And I just wanted to study in the UK instead of Belgium so that I could study in my language. But then when I got back home to Canada, that's when I got into working with the construction industry after the first year of being in business for myself. Okay. Because I started building a house. Not something I would do again. I just have no desire to do that again. I have no desire even to own more properties than what I have right now. Mm-hmm. But if I ever did, then I definitely would be hiring a general and working shoulder to shoulder with the general instead of working shoulder to shoulder with my trades.
Okay. So you acted as the general contractor when you built your house.
I did too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So a little bit of background that might be relevant in this conversation. This office that you see behind me is my brand new house that we built during COVID. Now, I hired a general contractor to do it all for us, but I think there were it was kind of a perfect storm, right? It was COVID times. Interest rates were extremely low. Everybody was building. The price of wood was quite high. We had issue after issue after issue after issue in building our house. And even still, this house, we've been building it for over a year and a half now, and we still are working on our punch list because the trades are difficult. Sometimes it's difficult to get them out here, and we're struggling with our general contractor. With all of that said, back to you, what did you learn when you were building your house, when you were acting as a general contractor, that led you to decide that you want to help these people do better?
They're flying by the seat of their pants. They're great at their trade. I mean, they're awesome at their trade. Every person we had working in our house was great at what he was doing, but organizing, yeah. So they're great at their trade, and then a business happens upon them. So let's look at the electrical contractor, for example. I'm working with one fellow whom I met in December 2006, and we are still coaching twice a month today. So how many years is that? From 06 until 22. And in that time, now he's paying a whole lot less than anybody else in my business because he recognized the value of stepping into a grandfathered program. So anybody who's in a grandfathered program, that's their investment point, and it doesn't go up.
No.
But nonetheless, this fellow got his apprenticeship through the hydro company in his area. And so then a business happened upon him. His family's calling on him to do wiring, and his family's friends are calling on him, and his neighbors and all that sort of thing. So it turns into a business. How hard can it be? Oh my God, those words. How hard can it be?
Famous last words.
Yes, exactly. So he had been in business when we met for 14 years. And I happened to be doing a workshop for his association, of which he was a chapter president. So he had some, professionalism. Certainly people saw him in a professional light. And so he came to all the chapter presidents came to this workshop this day for their association to see if they wanted to introduce it to their local members. And so he called me 2 weeks after that. And it's funny because I was fairly new in business at this point. Let me see, 3 years. And I wasn't great at the sales part, following up all this stuff. And there were so many people in the room. I didn't know who was who anyway. And so I'm just going to wait until January and follow up. So this was the middle of December and January. He called me on that first workday in January, if it was the 3rd or the 2nd or whatever it was. And he said, I have reflected more on my business in the past 14 years I have reflected more on my business in the past 14 days than I have in the past 14 years in business. And so he said, I want to take that program that you talked about, because in October, he had decided that's it. At the end of the year, when he gives his people the time off for Christmas and New Year's, because he would close business typically for a week and a half or so, that he was going to give them as a gift separation papers, because he was going to go back to work. The only thing he knew how to do is be an electrician at this hydro company. And by the grace of God, he wasn't good at making decisions, I say, because I teach this super successful, simple decision-making system. And it is, receiving whatever the idea or the opportunity is, considering it by asking yourself a question. Is this something I want? Something I want to do? Something I want to have? And from that, you make a decision, and the decision is simply yes or no, but then you step into it. So he thought he'd made the decision, but he hadn't stepped into it.
Yeah.
And so then when he came and sat in this workshop for 8 hours that day in mid-December, I think it was the 14th of December, then he, his wheels got turning, and he didn't give his guys separation papers. He had 8 or 11 employees, something like that at the time. So it's going to be a huge impact on many families in their area, right?
Sure, yeah.
So anyway, he stepped into this program that I offered that, went on for a year, and he and I coached for a year and a half. And after that, and then he took a break for a few months, and he said, so call me again in the fall. He took a break for the summertime. Call me again in the fall, and we'll pick up from where we left off. Okay, great. So I did. And he returned my call in February. And in February, he said that he just felt like he was right back to where he'd been when we first met, which was flying by the seat of his pants and just putting his head down day after day and plowing ahead. And this is what happens is they become business owners, but they don't know how to be business owners. They're still electricians or plumbers or mechanical, technicians, that sort of thing. Or, even a builder. One of my clients who's a builder, he was a truck driver, and he built himself a house himself. He did all the general work for it. And then his sister said, well, if you can do that, do it for me. Okay, fine. So he did it for his sister. And then a business happened upon him, and eventually he quit driving truck. But when we met, they'd been in business for maybe 10 years, I think, at that time. And when we met, they weren't making a profit. I mean, they were actually so far in the hole every year. And the bank would just keep giving them more money. And they were just putting holes in the ground before the winter freeze.
Yeah.
And just go. The year before we met, this general and his wife and I, they put 40 houses up. Now, when you're not making a profit on any of them, multiply that by 47, that's what it was, 47 houses, 47 track homes.
Wow.
And they never made a profit on any of them, so multiply that by 47 in 1 year.
How do you, so you saw this on the back end. He'd already made that happen. From your perspective, how do you get to that point where you're building 40 houses?
47 actually.
7.
Houses, yeah.
We'll round that up to 50.
Yeah, exactly.
You're building 50 houses and you're not profitable on one house. How do you, I mean, how did he let it get to that point? I don't understand, like.
Because he didn't know.
Okay.
He didn't know what he didn't know.
He's just not tracking the numbers.
No,
Yep.
They thought they were, but they weren't doing. So what he did is he finished up that year.
Yeah.
He sat down with a better accountant. He had a bookkeeper / accountant.
Yeah.
Who didn't know, but my client didn't know that this guy didn't know. Because when you're in that kind of financial situation, you go with what's good enough. Because that's what you can afford.
Sure.
So it was just a big shit show. It was just one problem after another. So he got through that. He got all those deals closed and done. And I remember he sat in on a half-day workshop with me and he said, okay, I have a situation for you. How would you deal with this? And I said, what does a contract say? And he just like blank. And I said, you build houses without contracts?
Oh, shit.
And he said, no, I have a contract, but I have no idea what it says. He said, in fact, my lawyer drew it up. And I remember the first time I read it, I didn't understand it. And he said, don't worry, it's just legalese.
Oh, wow.
So he didn't worry. And I remember also that he talked to his lawyer about getting a better contract drawn up, one he understood and one that he could speak to his purchasers about. And the lawyer was upset that he would be paying a business coach to do what the lawyer was doing for him, advising him in business and helping him make better decisions and stuff. And he said, really? You're helping me do that? If you're helping me do that, why am I in the situation I'm in?
Right.
Anyway,
how did I get here? If you've been helping me this whole time to achieve that goal, why am I stuck here?
Yeah, exactly. So that was the lawyer, and that's not a lawyer's job. Lawyers don't do that. The lawyer was doing it as a friend, right?
Right. Yeah.
Lawyers don't know anything about business either. They too are technicians. They too are tradespeople.
Yeah.
And then they have an office. So it's a professional service that they offer, right? Without all the materials that you're acquiring to put a house together. And lawyers, I've had lawyers as clients, and because I was in law for 25 years, I didn't like having lawyers as clients because I could just, not only could I see where they were holding themselves back and where their beliefs were so limiting to them, but it annoyed me. I could feel the annoyance in my cells because I'd done it for 25 years. And I mean, it was fun for me until a certain moment. And I just had it up to here, with people getting into problems, going to the lawyer fixes it for them. They're back within 2 or 3 years with the very same problem that they had before for the lawyer to fix for them again. So I left and went off to do what I did, lots of different things until I got into coaching. Back in 3 is when I hung out my shingles. So
interesting. So you're in your bio, you say you help men in business, from business suits to construction boots. Is this
Yeah.
in the suits? Are you talking about the lawyers, or are you talking about like general contractors, or like who's your client? Who are your clients right now today?
Contractors.
Contractors. Okay.
Contractors. One is a real estate it's a couple. One client is a husband and wife real estate investor client.
Mm-hmm.
So still construction more or less, but also I've worked with lawyers, as I say, and I don't anymore. I would refer them on to anyone else but me. But I worked
literally anyone else.
Literally that, and the food and beverage industry. I don't like that one either. So I would refer those people off also.
Okay. That seems weirdly specific. Why the food and beverage industry?
Because they believe that they can do nothing about their pricing, that they have to charge what they charge, they have to pay what they pay. And I remember asking this one guy, well, what about contractors, when they're building a house, or they're putting all the wiring into this huge office complex, or they're putting in all the ducting and equipment, furnaces and stuff like that, air conditioners. Like, what about them? Don't they have to buy materials to turn that into a meal that's going to be serving, the owners for a lot of years to come? Oh, it's not the same. Okay, so it's not. So they could not, and I worked with two of them just in a diagnostic assessment. So that's how I started with everybody. Yeah. And no, there was nothing they could change about the way it was. Well, then if you can't change anything, then
why are you hiring a coach?
Yeah, you don't work with me, because if you can't change anything, then nothing's going to change. Yeah. So just keep going.
They had a story that they like to tell themselves.
Yeah, exactly. It's a limiting belief, is what I say. That they're just limiting beliefs. That's what they've heard. That's what contractors. I mean, I used to do years ago, to grow my business, I would have full day workshops. And I built this house, so I had a great room, and it would hold several people. And so I'd have it all set up, and I provided a delicious lunch and all this. Well, numerous times, pretty much every time, there would be somebody in the room saying, oh, you can't do that. No contractor can do that. And so I would just ask questions about whatever it was I said. And then there'd be somebody from a back row who'd say, well, actually, I've done that before. And I'm realizing that I should be doing that more now, whatever it was. And I remember one was, I was talking about being not getting into the competitive bidding war, because they are their words. It's a competitive bidding war. So why do you want to get into a competitive war? Why do you want to get into a war? That sounds like a negative place to be, so they just bid on everything. Yeah. And it's kind of like throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks. Yeah. And for many contractors, before we're working together, that's what they're doing. So I help them identify who their A, B, and C quality customers are. And right off the bat, let's just work with your A's and B's and forget about the C's for now. We'll get into them later. Sure. And then what I want them to do is become one of the 3 contractors of choice that gets invited to bid with 2 other contractors, whether it be electrical, mechanical, road building, generals, everybody, you want to be an invited contractor. Yeah. And they have told me in all these workshops, they would say, well, that's not possible. And I love the way they, they really posture themselves. And sure. I just love working with these guys. I really do, because this tough exterior, they're salt of the earth people, right? Contractors.
Yeah, big, strong, blue collar men. Yeah.
So this tough exterior is not who they really are. Not at all. So I love to see them become a bit vulnerable. Teddy bears. Because that way they can be receptive to the possibility of another way and a better way. Yeah. I just love it working with these people. But I have worked with other people in suits, like insurance brokers. I worked I remember for about 3 years or something years ago, early on, I worked with this insurance broker who was a regional manager for this big insurance company, this global insurance company, and he was a regional manager. And our working together took him out of that regional seat because he said, this is not beneficial to me. I'm on salary as a regional manager. And so my books of business are dwindling. I mean, they're not continuing to grow as they should be. And I'm giving away some of them because I just can't keep up with them. But that's where the money is.
Yeah.
Is selling insurance and investments. So he quit being the regional and went back to just being, a broker or a financial planner, that sort of thing. So yeah, so I've worked with these people in suits, but also I work with contractors who are, now more than before, although I love, the small business owner. I love working with them because they grow so quickly. But I also work with, owners of companies who have 100, 150 employees, and they're making big money. And there's usually somebody in there who's wearing a suit almost all the time because they're out schmoozing with the owners and the generals to get those big contracts of choice and that sort of thing. So yeah, there are contractors who wear suits too. Yeah. And my clients typically are not on the tools anymore. Oh. But I do have a program that I've run before that is more for the smaller contractor, and I'm getting into resurrecting that as well because I miss them. I miss those smaller companies, to help them grow because there's just, it's so fast, it's it happens so quickly. So basically, and I do call it the Trade Contractors Business College, in fact. So it's entrepreneurial school, but with tried and true, rubber hits the road, simple tactics.
And it sounds like you're probably, this is kind of agnostic in terms of whether we're talking residential or commercial.
Exactly. No. Residential, ICI, yeah, the whole thing.
Nice. Where do you get your clients right now? How do you market yourself?
At this moment right now, I've been blessed with referrals. Referrals and LinkedIn, I guess. I haven't been on LinkedIn too much of late, but for about 2 years, I think I was pretty active on LinkedIn, and it was paying off very well. And then, I had a full day. So I like to have my clients, one full day so that nobody gets bumped around because of my travels, because I do still travel a lot. And I don't, and that's what had me put them all on one day. So I might go from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. with the number of clients that I might have. But I want them all on one day so that I don't have to, ask them to indulge me in my travel agenda and that sort of thing. So, yeah. That
makes sense. So I mean, that kind of leads actually into my next question is, what does a typical engagement look like with you? Are you doing like monthly retainers where you meet once a week? Do you have like 3 or 6 month packages?
Yeah, I always sell in a package, and it's a minimum 6 months. It could be 6 or 7 months, depending on which the package is. And
why 7 months?
Well, just because there's some other in-depth stuff, which actually I can't exactly sell right now because of I guess I could if I were back from whence I come, but I happen to be in Mexico right now. So people could be coming down though, actually. Yeah, I could be thinking of that again. They could now be coming down and we could be meeting in Mexico to have an in-depth. So here's what I really, really, really love is when I meet with somebody for about a half day in person, and this would be after we've coached for about a month, a few weeks, month, 6 weeks, something like that. So we've come to know each other a bit. They feel, safe and all that with me more than just the diagnostic assessment. And then we get together for a half day. And that half day just means that I don't book anything after that. And I'm telling them a half day, but that half day could be 6 hours. I mean, it depends on how long it takes us to get to a great point to, separate from there. And then we continue working with all that information that came up. And what it is I train on 7 simple strategies, 7 key business strategies that I've dramatically simplified. Okay. Strategy number 3 is to understand what truly stops you. So it's actually to follow through and understand what truly stops you in order to follow through.
Mm-hmm.
So I will just ask questions. That's what a good coach does, just ask questions. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking questions to help them identify what it might have been that impacted them somewhere between the ages of 5 and 7. So between the ages of 5 and 7, with all of the knowledge of how to survive in this world that they have accumulated in their first 5 years of life, or 6 or 7, something happens that causes them such deep shame that it leaves an indelible mark on their soul. And it's like a tree, is growing, and then this hit makes it split. Those trees that get hit by lightning maybe, and then they split?
Yeah.
That's what we all do. Every single one of us has had that moment. And then our ego becomes so strong that it controls us more than 90% of the time. Mm-hmm. And so every decision we make is basically made by the ego part of us as opposed to the soul or the God part of us, mm-hmm. which is that little boy who just likes to go running in the woods and pretend he's Davy Crockett or whatever, and I'm
42 years old. I still do that.
Well, that is fantastic. That is fantastic, because that's what we're here for. We are, in my opinion, we're simply here to have experiences.
And have fun. Yeah. Enjoy it.
Well, that's it. That's it. And if we have an experience that isn't so fun, then we just ask ourselves, is that something I want to do again? Mm-hmm. Likely not. No. So, however, we don't, is that something I want to do again? We don't even ask ourselves that. It's just, I got to do that again and again and again, even though I don't want to do it, because we're programmed. The last 2 years, if never before, we've seen how programmed we are, but we've been programmed since pre-birth. Mm-hmm. I found that out from my grandson when he was born, when he was 1 year old, Okay. His parents discussed while he was in utero, his name, what would they name him? And they discussed it for many months because they were not agreeing on the name. And finally they agreed on a name. And the father said, when my daughter proposed the name, then his father, my son-in-law, said, yeah, I like that. If I can call him Bastian, and the name would be Sebastian. And so my daughter said, yeah, I like Bastian. Yeah, that sounds nice. Remember the never ending story?
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, Bastian is born, but he was never called that. He was called Sebastian, or he was called Sebas. His father called him Sebas. We didn't call him Bastian. And then when he was 1 year old, I happened to be babysitting him one day because I was down in their province visiting them, and my daughter was back to work again already. And so he was with me all day. And I said, I think Sebastian has a name for himself now, but it wasn't anything like Sebas or Sebastian. And what he was calling himself at exactly 1 year old was Bata. And wouldn't that be very close to Bastian?
Yeah.
He's 14 3/4 now, and he still goes by Batan with an N on the end of it.
That's
Batan.
awesome.
Yeah. Wow. And I say, nobody ever called him Bastian except when his body was in utero.
How funny.
Isn't that? So then that just took me to another level of understanding of the programming that goes on with us. Yeah. So anyway, that's what I love the most. I'll spend a few hours sitting with this person in the energy, in our physical energy, and just asking questions. And it's when they say, oh, I don't see how this has anything to do with anything, but that's what I want to hear, because their ego does not want them to see it. But it comes up anyway. And oh my goodness, they'll break into a rack of sobs, and I just push the Kleenex box over and say, well, did you want to suppress that again? Because I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. It's let it out. Just let it out.
Nice. He's gonna get like a pet at some point, and he'll name the pet Atreyu.
Yes, and they have seen the movie. Actually, they watched it with me. Sebastian and his sister watched that movie with me. Yeah, and at first they thought, "Oh, watching a video, like that's old fashioned." And they were little, but still, they wanted to go to the theater, and it didn't work out for whatever reason, and so they were both standing on the on the sofa cushions.
This is never-ending story that we're talking about for those listening in the cheap seats.
Yeah, look it up. It's so great.
Amazing, great movie, beautiful story. I want to circle back, Lynne, to something that you said. Between the ages of 5 and 7, you get some event happens. I don't know if it's singular or maybe events plural that gives you shame, right? And then your ego protects you from that moving forward. Is shame the right word? Is it always shame, or can it be some other?
It's very typically shame. Shame is the lowest vibrational emotion that we have, and it's in that moment. And just to give you an example, nobody will ever know, who has said this, but one guy, his mom was beating on his little brother. Mm-hmm. Little brother was 3, I think. And so my client was 5. And he curled up into a ball on the sofa as far away from his mother as he could get, not wanting to say a word, because if he did, he knew he would be next.
Wow.
Now, the shame of not protecting his little brother.
Okay.
That he carried with him until the moment I'm just feeling it again. And he was one who said, well, I don't think this has anything to do with this, and that was one of those. And boy, so then after this, when we identify what this is, after this moment, then we continue our coaching, and something will come up where they're not following through on something. And I'm remembering what it was that was their defining moment between the ages of 5 and 7. And I can see the connection. And I say, it's kind of like that moment when, and they go, oh my God, it is. So for this guy, I left him with the assignment, and he said he agreed he would do it, to go and talk to his mother about this, because his mom no longer, drinking. I mean, this is many years later. It's 40 something years later, right? Yeah. And they had a, decent relationship and stuff like that. Anyway, so have you gone to see your mom yet? Have you gone to see your mom yet? So then one day, coaching session, and the first thing I said, so how'd it go with your mom? Well, and I said, listen, I'm going to hang up on you right now, and we're going to talk at this time tomorrow morning, and I'm going to hear all about it. Bye. And he said to me, when we talked the next day, he said, when you hung up that phone, everybody in my office heard, bitch. So yes, that happens sometimes. And this guy in particular told me, some months later, he said, Lynne, I love you like a big sister, or like an aunt or something, better than my aunts. I guess like a big sister I never had. I remember him saying that. And I said, oh, even though I can be that big B word, because, it's not fun to do something you really don't want to do. But
being a coachee, being coached is not fun, especially in professional and personal situations, right? Not necessarily talking about sports, but like professional and personal situations. If you go out of your way to hire a coach, it's because it's because you know that you can level up and you need help doing it.
Mhm.
Right. And it's not, a coach is can be distinguished, I think, from a consultant, in that a coach is a guide, but when you're with a coach, you have to do the work. With a consultant, they'll do the work and tell you the results, right? And
Mhm.
so I think, yeah, being coached is intrinsically difficult, because
Mhm.
you're the one that has to go through and do the work. You're the one that has to dig deep and go through, you know, bad emotions and dig up shit that you thought was buried and that you were perfectly happy with it buried.
Or you thought you were, but you
thought you
really
were,
weren't,
yeah.
or you couldn't have come to a coach,
Right.
because you're not happy with your business results. If you come, a contractor, but not only, I've worked with women also who are not in construction. I've worked with pretty much every industry. But when people come to a coach, it's because they're not happy with their results.
Mhm.
So they're not happy.
Yeah. And I love this. I love that you're talking about this, and it really resonates with me and a lot of what I've heard being on this podcast, hosting this podcast. I've spoken to almost 100 different coaches just on this podcast alone. That's not including, my marketing company, and we work with coaches every single day. And one of the common themes that I hear from business coaches and executive coaches is that their dirty little secret is that they're a life coach. Because
Yeah, well, isn't it?
because it's all intertwined at this point.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Because this is what stops us from doing what we know we need to do.
yeah.
But also in my business, I'm training, I'm teaching also. There's this training, huge training component,
Mhm.
because they don't know what they don't know. One of my clients is a father and two sons.
Mhm.
And I said to the father in the diagnostic assessment, there were the three of them there. And I said, is this really the entrepreneurial training you want to give to your sons, what you've learned over the years? And I mean, he's never been financially successful, but the way he does it is the only way he knows how to do it.
Mhm.
And his sons are doing it the same way, or were doing it the same way. We've been working together now for more than a year.
Mhm.
And it's amazing the changes, because again, it's for those smaller businesses, it's so simple.
What's your typical churn on clients? How long do clients stay with you?
I would say an average of 3 years that they stay with me. So of course I go into that grandfathered program after they've been through the initial, 6 or 7 or 9 month program that we started in. And that's taking this one guy out of it who's been with me since 2007. We met in 2006, but we started.
It's the origin story.
And that guy, oh my God, the things that he's gone through over the years, I can say this because nobody's going to know who he is, probably. Anyway, he has ordered and has received the confirmation of delivery date of a brand new airplane, custom built airplane. He didn't know squat about flying when we met.
Yeah.
And this is not his first airplane. He bought a used one first.
Oh, nice.
And before that, he was off scuba diving in the East Timor Sea.
That's very cool.
Isn't it? And this is a guy who didn't do anything outside of business and home and a deck that had never been built. I think they'd been in their home 5 or 7 years or something. They built the house. No offense to you taking a year and a half. I said, I will not go through a process. Mine was a long period. And you know what it was? It was the equal to a gestation period of a baby. And the delivery was every bit as painful. But he had built the house, he and his wife built the house themselves kind of, and because he's an electrical contractor. And when we started working together, like he'd been in business 14 years when we started working together, he did nothing for himself outside of the business. He and his wife would go camping. And that was the extent of their, and they go skiing in the wintertime, snowmobiling, I guess. Yeah. But anyway, then I got him thinking about doing something for himself just to get away from everything. And he started into golf. And 2 years later, he he packed it in. He said he just didn't take lessons anymore after 2 years. He said, I have to admit, Lynn, I hate golf. and I said, so how do you think I feel about golf? And he said, well, I suppose you like it like everybody else. And I said, oh no, I detest it. And he never knew in 2 years how much I detest golf. But today he still is invited to golf, golf holidays by his suppliers, because he's, a customer of choice. And so they take him to the, whatever it is, Trump International or something, and other places, and all expenses paid, and he knows how to golf. And so he feels confident on the golf course. But then after that, when he decided he would quit that, he knew he needed to do something else. So I suggested he just start looking at what's available to do as a pastime.
Yeah.
And so he got into deep sea scuba diving first. He got into scuba diving, and then that led to deep sea diving. And then he came home from, after a few years of that, and he went away to the East Timor Sea, like 5 planes to get there. And talk about being unplugged from your business. Totally unplugged. So it takes a while. And I recommend that everybody get to that point of a 3-week vacation where you're totally unplugged from your business. It has to operate well without you there. And it takes a while to get there. You have to grow your team, build your, make your team stronger and more competent and less dependent on you. And
nice. What sort of things did you first struggle with when you were newer to coaching?
Marketing and sales. I knew squat about both of them. I was fantastic at admin, but I didn't know how to get clients.
And what did you do to make that happen?
I hired a coach because, I needed a coach, but I hired a coach who had lots of sales experience. So someone who, like I had, legal experience, and that really comes in handy with my clients. I don't give them legal advice, but I give them scenarios, and I know when they need to be contacting their lawyer and stuff like that. And so I wanted somebody with some expertise behind them in sales. And that helped a ton. And then of course, over the years, that was just in the very, very beginning. And I worked with that guy for 2 years, every week for 2 years. And then I worked with, coaching mentors, let's say, and the biggest thing was on marketing, marketing. So
nice. And that got you up to a point where now it sounds like you don't need to do marketing at all.
Not much. I would say we always have to do marketing, but I'm guilty of doing very, 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 very little. and it's working so well for me because I have had it's almost 20 years, right? And so I get referrals and it's great. But as I say, I have an online, like video. It's going to be video. I've done it before for years and years. I did it, and it was teleconference, but now we can do it by video. So it's just that much better. Anyway, it's the training of those 7 simple strategies for success. And I'm getting that back out there. So now I've got to get back to marketing, because I need a minimum of 10 clients in it to make it really valuable to the clients. And then of course, once it gets going, then clients will come in every month, new people will come in every month, and it'll just keep going.
So is this a pre-recorded course that you've got set up, or is this going to be live group coaching?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. But not so much coaching. This is the training component. This is the training. And so all they have to do is, follow through from week to week on the training. So the way I've run it before, and I would do it again because it works so well, is twice a month. So the beginning of the month and the middle of the month. Sure. And that's one strategy. And then strategy number 2 is the next month, and strategy number 3 the next month. So it's a 7-month program, but it's so much more affordable, right? And there's a Q&A portion of it. So everybody has an opportunity to, to bring in their questions so that they're more likely to follow through. But it's not the one-on-one coaching. And if they want that one-on-one coaching, of course they can get it. There's an upgrade, like, do you want to fly at the back of the plane or do you want to fly at the front of the plane?
Good old upsell.
Well, it's just an opportunity. It's just, it's an opportunity to get more, and it will be also without the heavy investment of the 3 coaching sessions a month, which the other programs are. It's 3 one-on-one personal, private, coaching sessions. And it's an investment. I mean, people say, my God, that's a lot of money. What would it take in new sales for you to recuperate this investment?
How quickly does this pay for itself?
Absolutely. And that's what I'm always looking for, is to have your business recuperate this investment quickly. Like, why drag it out? And just to give you an example, one guy dragged his heels, and that's in his testimonial. He says, I just wish I'd hired her 5 years earlier. So 5 years before we start working together, he and I meet. It was through LinkedIn, I remember years ago, and we went to the same college, not at the same time. And, same town, same college, all that stuff, but not at the same time. We didn't know each other. And he said, if you're ever in my area, I'd love to buy a coffee. And I just happened to be coming through your area, driving through your area, next week. So fine, we get together. I followed up with him because I'm now good at sales. I wasn't back then, way back then. And I followed up with him, and 3 strikes and you're out. So, the third time, okay, that's fine. Give me a call if ever you decide to, get off the pot. Sure. So he did reach out to me, and actually it was for his daughter. So both of them became clients, but he said, and not only, for my daughter, but I want to talk to you now too. It was within 8 days of our diagnostic assessment, not even into the full blown coaching and everything. 8 days from that first session, he landed a job that gave him more profit than the entire 7-month program he stepped into within 8 days. And wow. He says, by the grace of God, he didn't actually do the work on that job. He's a general, but he didn't actually do the work on that job for a couple of months. They got started a couple of months later. He said, so we made far more profit on it than I imagined we would when I put the quote together, because we tweaked so many little things along the way that they made so much more profit. So
that's great.
Yeah, so that's what I'm looking for. I'm a numbers person. I love math, so simple math.
Lynne, what is your plan for? So you're gonna restart this 7-month, 7-step group training, not coaching. Make sure I'm using the right terms here. What is your plan to market that? Do you have a plan for that right now, or is that something that's still kind of on the back burner?
It's kind of on the back burner.
Okay.
Yeah. It'll be coming to the front burner in the not too distant future, but
yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Lynne, this has been really great. I want to be respectful of your time here. Is there anything that you would like to chat about that we haven't had an opportunity to touch upon quite yet?
I don't think so, really. I guess if I could just get a message out to your viewers, you don't only have to be in business, but you're probably in business if you're watching this podcast, Michael's podcast. But if you're in business and you're not getting the results you want to get, you keep struggling and you keep pushing forward, and you feel like you're gaining ground, but it's not happening quickly, and it sure as heck isn't easy. Hire a coach. Just hire a coach. Make sure. And I'm going to say, check the referrals. And I said this, I was working with clients, it's my client day was yesterday, but these last clients I was working with, they need to put together a system for selling this new thing that they're just getting into. So we were working at that. And I said, okay, well, when you guys get your system together and your questions and whatnot, send them to me. And I, as Mrs. Homeowner, will be happy to poke holes in it. Because I said to them, and you need to have 3 really good testimonials of people I can talk to as this homeowner. Because I do, and I said, because if I were your client, I would be calling them. And both of them laughed and said, yes, you would. I said, yes, of course I would. And you want clients like that. Clients who have sold themselves on working with you. Before you get into the program, whatever, like what they're offering. And because it'll be like a 3-month job, on their homes, so you want them to be in love with the fact that they stepped into making this buying decision. You don't want them to feel like they were sold and all that. And it's the same thing for all of us as business owners. We want to check the references. So reach out, give people a call, have some really good, like 3 really good questions to ask them to make sure that it's going to work for you. And then become really clear with what's it going to take for this to be a worthwhile investment for me? How many new clients do I need to bring in or whatever? And I have worked with people in my early years who invested in themselves. One was to get her dream job that had eluded her whole life. And the other one, a few more, but anyway, the other main one, he was a manager of a department in a trucking company, and his trucks were the construction trucks. They were delivering aggregates and stuff like that. And he invested in himself to work with me because he heard about me in the construction industry and he wanted to know what he would go into next before he quit this job that wasn't satisfying him. And within 3 months, his boss called him in and said, like, what's going on? Like, you are a different person. And so the boss said, well, we want to be paying for that coaching for you. Then you shouldn't be paying that out of your own pocket. We should be paying for that because look who you've become. And, Paul is still in that company today. And that's been.
And he loves it now, presumably?
12, 13 years. Oh, loves it. He has grown his department into about 3 different divisions. And he just loves it. He just loves it. So if you don't own your own business, you're worth more than your business is worth. So why not invest in you? Yeah, that's the message I wanted to get.
That's good. No, I love that. I love that a lot. That's a great message. Lynne, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh gosh, I love it.
Where can our listeners and viewers connect with you online?
Oh, well, they can go to my website at mljinternational.com. And they can find me on LinkedIn. Lynne is Lynne Jacob, like in the Bible, Jacob. And I guess that's about it. That's about it. My website and LinkedIn. They're the 2 places.
That's perfect. Lynne, thank you so much again for joining us on the Remarkable Coach podcast. I appreciate you making the time. This has been a very great conversation.
I've had a pleasure. I know I've rambled on a lot, but I am just so passionate about what I do. And it still amazes me after all these years. And it amazes me, to be having a conversation with someone like you today, Michael. And it's been fun hearing about your house and your building woes.
Yeah, they'll stop someday. We'll see.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to, as always, thank you to our viewers and listeners for joining us. We'll catch you guys next time. Till then.
Bye.